Okay. Good morning to you, Mr. Deus. Good morning. Okay. How are you? How are you? How are you?
Okay, how are you?
Okay.
I'm
So
fine.
I'm by the names of Annette Naiga, and I'm going to take you through map reading. Can you please first introduce yourself? Can you tell us
Oyamba
where you are
Deus.
from? Okay. Thank you. So the topic of map reading is majorly taught in Senior 1 in Term 2. And within that topic of map reading, we are going to look at 4 subtopics, which are grid reference, area, distance, and then hemisphere. Now, in this presentation that I'm going to make today, I included some few photographs, as you will be seeing in the slides as we move. Like, for example, you're seeing that photograph. Are you seeing it? Are you seeing the photograph? Hmm? Are you seeing
Seeing
it?
it. I'm seeing the
Yeah.
photograph.
Okay. So one of the reasons I
Yes, I'm
included
seeing
it,
it.
due to the fact that map reading, some people take it to be ambiguous. That is why I had to use these photos so that you can easily understand what I'm going to teach about. So what comes into your mind when you talk about map reading? First, give me your view. Hello?
It's going to maybe to know how we can represent. Yes, it's going to know how we can present the big area with a piece of paper
Okay. Thank you for that
and determining
contribution.
the distance over there.
Thank you for that contribution. So when we talk about map reading is an essential skill. By the way, it is a skill. So throughout this lesson, we are going to be obtaining a skill. There are so many maps that you've been seeing, and those maps are used to represent the actual. It can be a district, it can be the world. So they are just used to represent the big thing. So map reading is an essential skill for navigation and geographical understanding. It helps us to bring the big world on a piece of paper so that we can be able to study it as a whole. So it involves interpreting various symbols. We are going to see so many. Remember, a map has so many symbols. It has scales and grid systems on a map. So after this lesson, understanding map reading will enhance our ability to explore and analyze geographical areas. Are we together? Are we together?
Yes, we are together.
So straight away, I'm
Yes,
going
we are
to first
together.
tell you how we find the grid reference before we go to anything else. Remember, when we meet physically, that is when I will give you the map and you will be able to see the things that I'm presenting here. So a map has squares. Have you ever seen a map extract? Hmm? Have you ever seen a map extract?
Yes.
So a map extract has so many squares, but here
Yes.
I have picked only one square
Yes.
from the map extract, and I'm going to explain the features that are contained in one square. It is called a grid square, and within this grid square, it has 10 small boxes, and this one grid square is equal to 2 centimeters. So within it has 10 small squares. Now, how do we get the grid reference? Remember, on a map extract, we have what we call eastings and then northings. The eastings are the lines that are drawn vertically, and they increase going to the eastern side. And then the northings are the lines that are drawn horizontally, and they increase going to the north. That is why they are called northings. So when we are finding a grid reference, we have to be very well conversant with the northings and eastings. Now, when you look at this grid square that is in that photograph there? You're seeing a line that is named 45. Excuse me, are you seeing what I'm showing you?
Yes.
Are you seeing the line that has
Yes.
the number 45? Hmm?
Yes, I'm seeing it.
And the one that has 44?
Yes.
From what I've explained, are those nothings or
Yes. They are nothings.
they are nothings? Why are they nothings?
They are because they increase towards northwards.
Yes, good student. And then are you seeing the lines labeled 18 and 19?
Yes.
Are those eastings, nothings?
They are eastings
Why?
because they increase towards eastwards.
Yeah, that is it. So you have understood. And now we are going to go on how we get the grid reference. Remember, we've talked about the eastings and nothings. And when we are going to identify the grid reference, the formula is eastings and then nothings. Are we together? So whenever the grid
Yes.
reference is a 6-digit number, it begins with the first two numbers. You read them on the eastings, and then the second one, you count the small boxes up to the feature that you've been told to identify. And then the next 2 digits are read from the nothings. And then the last one is the number of the small boxes in which the feature you've told to identify is located. Are we together? So when you look at this
Yes, we are good.
square, there was a feature, the one that is colored red. And because I said when we are getting the grid reference, we first look at the eastings. So is it after the easting named 18 or after the easting named 19? It is after the easting named 18. So we will record 18 as the first 2-digit number. And then still towards the east, we are going to count how many small boxes are there from the easting line 18 up to the feature that we've told to locate. We shall count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are only 5. And therefore we shall write our third digit. And then after that, we shall move to the nothings. Is it after the nothing numbered 44 or 45? It is after the nothing numbered 44. Then you write the next 2-digit number, which is 44. And after that, you shall count the small boxes from the nothing numbered 44 up to when you find the feature, which is 1, 2, 3. And that is why you're seeing a number there labeled 3. Then after reading that, you shall be able to get your 6-digit grid reference. Are we together? Are we together?
Yes.
Yeah. So after understanding that, we are then
Yes.
going to look at the distance. When we talk about distance, what comes into your mind? What is distance according to you?
Distance, according to me, distance, this is the time. This is the time interval between two points.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Good
Time
response.
interval between 2 points.
Thank you very much. And you're very right. So in distance measurement, this is the critical way for planning routes and determining travel times. When we are determining distance, it is always between 2 points. Take an example of point A and point B. When you're finding distance, you're going to find how long is B from A, or how long is point B, is point A from B. So when we are determining distance on a map, we can use so many. Remember, a map has so many features. For example, you can be asked to identify a distance of, let's say, they are irregular and then regular objects. So when you are told to find the distance of irregular objects, for example, it can be a route, a road. So we have very many methods of using. You can either use a ruler, a thread, or a piece of paper. And when you're going to use a piece of paper, all you have to do is fold it, and then you will be rotating. Remember, they can tell you go to the map extract, find this road labeled. It can be labeled Katikamo, and then they tell you read from grid reference this up to grid reference this. So what you have to first do is identifying those 2 points. Remember, I told you whenever we are finding distance, it has to be between two points. And after identifying those 2 points, you will either get your thread or a piece of paper. And how do we use this? When we get a thread, you will begin from the point that you allocated. For example, if it is point A and B, you will begin from point A, you put your thread. And then you go twisting the thread where you get a straight line and the thread is straight on that route. Then you go locating using either a pen or a pencil up to when you reach point B. And after that, you will transfer it to the scale. We are also going to look at the scale. But for now, we are going to leave it to leave it at that. Here, we have ways to get distance scale on a map. For example, of how distance scales may be displayed on a map are verbally or using words such as 4 centimeters equal to 1 kilometer. This scale means 4 centimeters on a map are equal to 1 kilometer. We are going to look at that in details when we come to finding the what? The scale. Okay. So after that, we are going to move to the next subtopic, which is hemisphere, as I identified as we were beginning. So on a map extract, we are also required to find the hemisphere. And we have two hemispheres. That is, it is either the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere. And how do these come about? Remember, the Earth is divided in 2 hemispheres. That is the northern hemisphere and then the southern hemisphere. So this division is significantly understanding climate, geography, and time zones. So when we go to the map extract, this hemisphere is always indicated either at the right-hand side or the left-hand side of the map. So you have to be very keen when you are identifying hemisphere. At some point, you might find the letter S is included. Then there it will be very easy. Because when you find there are some digits on the northing and they're included, it can be 90, AC, and some apostrophes. So when you find there is letter S, then that is very easy. You will just know that is the southern hemisphere. And when you find it is indicated letter N, then you will know that is the northern hemisphere. Are we together? Are you getting me?
Yes.
Yes. So that is the hemisphere. Have you understood the hemisphere?
How do we get is hemisphere related to prime meridian?
To prime meridian?
Yes.
What is prime meridian? Before we go to that, what do you understand by prime meridian?
Prime meridian, this is a line that cuts across the world, and especially, if you remember my primary social studies, that it passed through the Accra, that's Ghana, and coming to other parts. Is prime meridian as the hemispheres or prime meridian the same as the equator? Thank you, madam.
Thank you for that beautiful question. Remember, here we are talking about, remember the world is divided into only 2 parts. That is the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. And what is connected to these 2 hemispheres is majorly the equator. When you cross the equator and then you move northwards, then that is where we find the northern hemisphere. And when you cross the equator, flowing downwards, that is the southern hemisphere. So whenever we are identifying hemisphere, it does not tackle at any point the prime meridian. Are we together? Okay, thank you for that wonderful question. So now we are going to move to the next subtopic, which is scales on a map. So we are going to see how do we interpret scales on a map. Remember, map scales can be represented either as a ratio, a fraction, or a graphic scale. So the importance of a scale indicates how much the real world is reduced on the map. Remember when we were talking about grid reference, I had talked about the grid square. And the grid square, they use 2 centimeters to represent that small word. And in most cases, they are figures that are indicated on a map to explain a scale. For example, you might find they write 1 and then they use semicolons and then they put 500,000. Then that will mean that this 500 kilometer, 1 centimeter on a map represents 500,000 kilometers on the ground. So this one grid square is just used to represent the 50,000 kilometers, because we cannot be able to draw the whole world on a piece of paper. That is why it is reduced to that scale in order to easily represent it on a piece of paper. Are we together? Hmm?
Yes,
and you remember when
madam.
I was explaining about distance, I told you after using your thread or piece of paper on the irregular object that you've told to identify the distance, that is when you hold the piece of paper. Yes, please, I'm seeing your hand up.
Okay.
Can you ask a
Thank
question?
you, madam. Madam, I'm asking.
Mm.
Madam, I'm asking about how can we get the scale for irregular objects?
For irregular objects?
Let's say for the irregular objects. Yes,
this is what I've been trying to explain. Remember, I told you when we were getting the distance, we used our thread. You either use a thread or a piece of paper. So after using it to mark the different regions from point A to point B, then you transfer that to that. Are you seeing where my cursor is? Are you seeing? Hmm? Are you seeing where my cursor is? Yeah.
Yes.
So when you finish using your thread, this is where you bring your what? Your thread on this scale. This one here. Then you're going to put your scale, your thread. You're going to put your thread on this scale that you're seeing down here, this one here. You begin from 0. The first mark that you put on thread will begin from a 0, from here. And then you put the thread. Remember, this scale is short. So you will put your thread up to where it ends. So we are going to take a distance. For example, if that thread stops here. Are you seeing this region here? Hmm?
Yes.
Yeah. So when your thread stops here, you're going to count these boxes. Clear? So you'll count how many boxes are those up to the red line that I've drawn. Hmm?
There are 3 boxes.
There are 3 boxes. And therefore, that will be your distance. That will be the real distance. Got it? Okay. So now we are going to continue. So then, here we are just going to look at the practical applications of map reading. Where is map reading relevant? So these skills that we've learned are essential for outdoor activities like hiking and camping. For example, you may want to go to a place called Golo, but you are like, how does this place looks like? And remember, maps are there online. You know, we are in now a digital world. Everything can be represented digitally. So you'll go to Google Maps and then you try to look at this place, Golo. Where is it located? What is its distance? So you will be using these skills that you've learned in map reading to identify that place and get well prepared for your camping in such a place. Then these skills are also crucial in professions such as urban planning. You know, when people are going to plan for cities, like you're going to build like to construct buildings in a given city, you're not going to just come from nowhere and you begin planning and you begin building. You have to first look at the geographical location, like what are the features there, where can you locate your everything. So here we are using the skills that we learned from map reading into urban planning, and then environmental science and logistics. Then enhanced map reading skills lead to better decision making and navigation abilities. So when you know these skills, after identifying your place, for example, you're going to camp, it will be easier for you to do what? To decide that, can I really go to this place or I leave it, from what you have identified just as after looking at the map. So then we come to the end of this lecture. Thank you for being attentive, and thank you for contributing and asking questions. So map reading is an essential skill that empowers learners to navigate their environments effectively and enhances their understanding of spatial relationships. By developing map reading skills, individuals gain confidence in their navigation skills, which can be crucial in various situations, such as outdoor activities or when technology fails. And that is the end of our lesson. Do you have any question before we come to the end?
Okay. Thank you, madam. Madam, I'm asking you. I'm thanking you. I'm thanking you for the lecture, for making me to understand about the map work. Thank you so much, madam.
Okay, you're welcome. And let me hope when we come physically, we meet and I give you a map extract, you'll be able to use all these things that we've looked at. Remember, we looked at determining distance, hemisphere, grid reference, as well as the scale. So hope when you are given a map extract, you'll be able to put this into practice. So thank you for attending this lesson, and I wish you the best. May the Almighty protect you.
Thank you, madam.
You're welcome.